Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this first Digital Earth Africa webinar that's going to be focused on data validation of Earth observations at the continental scale. My name is Aditya Agrawal, and I am the Senior Advisor to the Digital Earth Africa program. We're going to have a great program for you today with speakers and panelists from around the world, but most importantly, from our partner institutions based in Africa. This webinar is going to be focused on introducing you to Digital Earth Africa, the Digital Earth Africa program, and how the data validation is taking place on products and services being provided by this program to build broader confidence and trust in Earth observations and what you can do with Earth observations. I'm going to be your moderator for this discussion, and I really look forward to a stimulating discussion because I think we have a great set of speakers and panelists. Matt, can I get the next slide, please? So let me just go over the agenda really quickly. We're going to start off with an introduction to the Digital Earth Africa program, followed by understanding the Digital Earth Africa data validation program that's been set up at the continental scale. We do have a presentation that's set for Collect Earth Online, although we are still waiting for that speaker, so hopefully she will show up soon. And then we're going to have a brief intro on water observations from space. We're then going to go into a panel with our partner institutions, RCMRD, the Sahara and Sahel Observatory, Agromet, and Afrigist, to open up a dialogue about the data validation program, why it's important, what that means for trust and confidence, and so on. Matt, can I have the next slide, please? So let me just go over a few housekeeping rules and then we will get the program started. For the speakers and panelists, please mute yourself unless you're speaking. Please keep the video on when speaking, and if you want to keep it on, depending on your bandwidth at other times, I will leave that up to you. For all the attendees, we are going to have a Q&A function that's set up, so you should see a button on your Zoom application with a Q&A button at the very bottom. Please feel free to submit questions through that Q&A function as we're going through all of the conversations. I will be your moderator, so I will be selecting questions for speakers and panelists as we go through the discussion. And most importantly, enjoy yourself. It should be a really great and productive and fruitful discussion. So thank you once again for everyone that's joining. By last count, we had a really huge registration rate coming in from a number of countries around the world. So hopefully we'll get really good and diverse perspectives on this discussion. So with that being said, let me hand it over to Adam Lewis, who is the Managing Director of the Digital Earth Africa program. Adam, please provide a brief introduction to yourself, a welcome for the attendees, and proceed with your presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Aditya. Look, welcome everybody. It's really great to have so many people here for this first webinar of ours. We're really excited to have this opportunity to share a bit of knowledge. I'm the head of the establishment team. I have a long background in sort of remote sensing and resources management and information, and I won't say more than that. Rather than assume that everybody online tonight knows about Digital Earth Africa, my presentation is designed to fill in some gaps for those of you who don't know much or anything potentially about the program. Next slide, thanks, Matt. The program is really predicated on the need. We know the African continent is massive. It has diverse and rich environments and resources, and we know there's many challenges, whether it's in drinking water or water resources for agriculture or food insecurity or urban development. And we equally know that Earth observations, satellite observations, have the potential to track the changes in these sorts of things across the entire continent in unprecedented detail now. And that can provide the data and the evidence needed to support decision makers and drive progress and stability if we get it aligned well. Next slide, please, Matt. So this slide is purely a gratuitous graphic indicating that there are many satellites in space capturing a lot of data for us, and our challenge is then to use that data effectively. Thanks, Matt. We'll go to the next slide. So we formed the Digital Earth Africa program as a whole of continent approach to using Earth observations. The model was first operationalised by Geoscience Australia in their Digital Earth Australia program. We are now the big sister or the big brother to Digital Earth Australia, Digital Earth Africa. Africa is much bigger than Australia, and we're leaping ahead in technology. We Australians are a little bit competitive with each other when we move from one space to another, so you'll have to forgive that. What Digital Earth Africa will do is it's going to allow anyone to track changes across the continent in unprecedented detail using the rich sources of satellite data that are now available. With that information, there are insights to be gained across a whole suite of issues, as I mentioned earlier and is listed on this slide. You know, whether it's areas prone to flooding or how serious is droughts, or agricultural productivity and food security to forest management and so forth. These are things that Earth observations can really fuel information about. And the other thing about Digital Earth Africa is that rather than looking at specific areas and being a research program, the establishment has to provide a sustained capability, something that's based and built in Africa for Africa. So let's move on to the next slide, Matt, thanks. This is the broad technological architecture of Digital Earth Africa and the data cube. And on the left, there's observations, which is all this data coming from satellites, thanks to the European Commission, to the United States government, to Japan, and others who provide free and open satellite data for managing resources. Our challenge is to take that data, and the next step is to make it into analysis-ready data. And we're bringing to Africa analysis-ready data for the entire continent. We then look to convert that into products, such as continental products, and we've produced a water observation product for all of Africa already. And then those products can be connected to different decision makers in different sectors. So there are, with many satellites, there's a potential to make many products and for them to connect to many, many people and decisions. And that's the real model. Next slide, please, Matt. The program itself is funded from two sources, the Australian government and from the Helmsley Charitable Trust, over a 3 to 4 year period ending in 2022. That's to get it established. As I said before, we're leveraging some Australian innovation and experience of the open data cube technology, and we're scaling that up to the African continent. It's never been used at this scale before. Central to this program, the way we're doing it, is to build partnerships, networks of connections to groups. Most importantly, our implementing partners in Africa. Those are the regional organisations like the ECA and AgriMet, AfriGIS, CSE, OSS, RCMRD, many of whom are here today. And then the international organisations and partners, and such as GEO and ITC from the Netherlands, who are helping us to deliver the capacity development, and through to the others listed there. So that's quite a crucial part of the program. Next slide, please, Matt. Also crucial is that this program is guided by a vision that's been developed through our Technical Advisory Committee and steered by principles that have also been developed by our Technical Advisory Committee. And that vision is as written there. It's about providing a routine and reliable and operational service, delivering information that will enable policymakers, scientists, whether they're in government, the private sector, or civil society, to address problems that may be social, environmental, or economic. The principles are in the boxes, and they are that this is about we're using free and open data, and we're producing free and open products, and that are interoperable across systems, whilst maintaining integrity and privacy. It's operational is another principle, and it's looking at the whole continent, that the system has to be sustainable and has to use all the expertise available in Africa to sustain and maintain and grow it. Accountability is about being accountable to our stakeholders in Africa and responsive to the requirements of that, and being agile as a program. So this is a program which is developing as it goes and engaging with issues as they emerge. And the last but not least is diversity and inclusiveness, and we have a strong commitment to diversity and inclusiveness, including gender diversity. Next slide, please, Matt. We have an established governance framework, including a technical advisory committee, many of whom can be seen in the picture on this slide, a stakeholder community group, which has somewhere in the order of 600 members, and a governing board, which are in the process of forming. And in some of the governance, the previous slide on the vision and the principles are part of that governance framework. Next slide, Matt. Actually, I think we'll skip over that. I don't think I need to say more about this. The governing board is about strategic guidance and oversight and accountability. The technical advisory committee helps to guide the program on a day-to-day, year-to-year basis, and the stakeholder community group is a broader engagement framework. Next slide, thanks, Matt. As I said before, there should be one before that. Okay, those are just the partnerships. I just wanted to show a few logos, but in fact, we can move on to the next slide. There is a strong logic to the program. We've built in a logic. How do we get to our long-term goal of improving lives through the access to tailored information for decision-making? We do that by having the second level here, 3 things: a sustainable supply. So that's all about the program setting up something that's going to be ongoing. In the middle, the demand and uptake, and that's really where we are tonight. To have demand and uptake and be relevant, the products that are produced have to be reliable, they have to be of known accuracy, they have to be understood by users. And that's really a crucial part of that is to have validated data. And that's the reason that we're doing the webinar tonight. And on the right-hand side is regional and global engagement, which is another story, and it's about connecting with programs like GeoGlam and Geo and leveraging, both contributing to those international frameworks and broader frameworks and drawing from them. Next one, thanks, Matt. So I'm just going to hand over to Megan in a moment, but the validation is a crucial part of the program, as I've said. The primary goal is to give confidence in the data products, highlight limitations, make them understood. Nothing's perfect. The key thing about information is to understand what it can and can't be used for. We, some time ago, identified validation as a crucial pillar for the program, and it's moved to become to the stage of us having a strategy and a program, and that being well advanced, and hence it's the first webinar we're delivering. So we're very proud of the work that's been done so far. Next slide, please, Matt. And this just tries to illustrate that validation is part of our maturing of products. Megan will go through this, I'm sure, in more detail and coherence. But when we start with an idea, a prototype, part of getting it to an operational product is having a rigorous validation. And through that, we can understand whether this map, for example, on the bottom left of the Okavango Delta in Botswana, whether those green areas really mean that there's water there 50% of the time, whether they're more or less accurate. And that's what users need to understand the products. So with that, I will end and hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me just jump in there really quick before we go to Megan. Adam, thanks very much for that presentation. Let me just also remind all of our attendees that please enter your questions through the Q&A function. That will be the way that we're able to have your voice be heard and be able to engage with your questions to the speakers and panelists. Adam, I have a couple of questions for you while we wait on questions from others before we move over to Megan. One of the things that you mentioned in your slide is this is open to anyone, that it's free and open. Can you expand on that a little bit when you say this is open to anyone, that it's a free and open infrastructure? What does that mean from a user perspective to you?
Thanks, Aditya. So the data we get come from these international space agencies who provide it free of cost and with an open license, so it can be used for any peaceful purpose. We are bringing that to Africa and putting it in the Amazon, working with Amazon, who are putting it on their public data store. So it's in the cloud, based in Cape Town in Africa. The data are processed to be ready to use, which means there's a degree of processing of satellite imagery that has to happen before you can happily pull it into a GIS, for example. That process is being done. And then essentially anybody with access to the internet can start to go to those data sets on Amazon, or they can use our map viewer, which is a web-based viewer, and that's accessible online to anybody. And they can also get into the training materials and the analysis sandbox, which is also now available and operational. When we produce products like that water observation product that I showed a moment ago, with the little map of the Okavango Delta, that is also goes online, and that is then available for anybody to use, and they can use it for analysis, or they can put it into a GIS, or they can view it in a map. The idea is that by making things available to a wider range of people across a wider range of countries, we can do a lot more good with the same amount of data. And that's a model that I think is proving itself across the world. Thanks, Vijay.
Adam, one more question coming in from Mokhtar Dembele. What do you mean by data at unprecedented detail in terms of spatial and temporal resolutions?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Mokhtar. We're really talking about unprecedented amounts of data and consistently across the continent. So we're talking about 10-meter resolution from the Sentinel satellites, but not just one image. We're talking about the full time series, which is every 5 days, going back to 2017. We're talking about the Landsat data, which is 30-meter pixels, but goes back to 1984. So these incredibly dense time series of data reveal much more information than has been produced traditionally through using 1 or 2 images. And the data cube infrastructure we've set up allows the data to be used as a time series and to be processed. Thousands and thousands of images can be processed in one process to produce really rich information. So the WOFs, the water observations material that we're showing, that slide of how much water there is, uses 10 years of data to produce one map. So it's that sense that I mean unprecedented detail. It's about detecting the changes and the processes. It's not the sense of it's not just spatial resolution.
Great, thank you very much, Adam. So next, let's go to Megan. Megan is the data validation program lead in the Digital North Africa establishment team. Megan, please briefly introduce yourself, and then please go ahead with your presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Aditya. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Megan. I'm the project lead of validation for Digital Earth Africa. And essentially my role is to get the validation effort within Digital Earth Africa established. Our validation team has been working together for quite a while now to develop a validation approach for our program. And we've begun applying this approach to our map products and services at the continental scale. And I'm going to provide a general overview of our approach here. Next slide, Matt. Thanks. First, I want to take a moment and define what we mean by validation and why it is important. So validation is simply the process of comparing the predicted or mapped values to a set of reference data that are considered to represent the reality on the ground. Next slide. So reality is in quotes because it can be represented in several ways. First, it can be represented by existing reference data sets, perhaps even collected by other folks. And obviously this is the lowest hanging fruit. Reality can also be assessed through image interpretation of a set of sample points or polygons using aerial or satellite imagery. And this allows analysts to virtually assess locations across a large area and through time from their own computers. And finally, reality can be assessed by physically visiting a location on the ground. And of course, this is the closest to the truth, but it also has its limitations in that it's difficult to cover large areas, have access to every location, and to assess any changes over time. And also, you can't go back in time when assessing a location on the ground. So obviously the cost goes up as the effort increases. So a first step in our approach is to assess what is necessary for any validation effort. But essentially, once you have a set of reference data, you can simply compare this to the map product and see where it matches up. Next slide. So as Adam already spoke to, the primary goal for validation within the context of Digital Earth Africa is to provide confidence in our maps and data products while also highlighting the limitations. Where is it working? Where is it failing? And this allows appropriate application by the users of the product. But we also see the validation process as an opportunity to engage with end users to ensure that the products and validation meet their needs. Next slide. So in order to achieve this, we have implemented two approaches to validation. First is the more traditional quantitative approach, which uses a statistical assessment of the map based on probability sample design. And the second is a more qualitative approach, and that's simply a descriptive assessment of the map by engaging with potential end users. Can you go back one slide? I just want to point out that I'm not going to go into the specifics of our validation strategy because it's quite detailed, but I do want to point you to our website where you can download the validation strategy document and learn more about our process. Next slide. So there are several challenges in conducting continental scale validation. So first, we are assessing the accuracy of maps covering a very large area with a diverse geography and climate. So what may be the rainy season in one area may be the dry season in another. And this variability impacts the accuracy of a map and needs to be captured in any validation effort. Assessment of reference locations requires knowledge of the region and the landscape, which is pretty difficult to capture if only one person is doing the validation on their own and likely doesn't have all of that regional knowledge. Next slide. So another challenge is that many of the map products and services of Digital Earth Africa, as Adam pointed out, are based on are dynamic and multi-data sets. So they're not a standalone static map. So therefore, validation needs to capture the variability and accuracy, not only across space, but also across time. And this may vary between locations on the continent. Next slide. So finally, finally, a core component of Digital Earth Africa is to create products that are fit for purpose. And however, at a continental scale, there are many diverse kinds of users and user needs. So we seek to understand what those potential uses are in order to build products that are fit for purpose and design a validation process that is well suited to those needs. Next slide. So our validation strategy was designed to respond to all of these challenges. And while we are still learning as we go along, I'm really proud of the work that we've done. The validation task team draws on a lot of experience doing validation across the continent. We've all worked really hard to develop a process that upholds best practices and collects reference data in a consistent manner. And I just want to say this is no small achievement. It takes a lot of coordination, organization, and teamwork between all of us. And these are just the leads for each of our organizations on the validation task team, and will be part of our panel discussion later on. So to address the first challenge of conducting validation across an entire continent, we are, we built our task team from members from multiple organizations with vast experience doing validation across multiple regions. So additionally, all of these organizations have been working in these regions for quite a while and have an understanding and process of communicating with potential end users that we can really draw on to inform our qualitative assessment process. Next slide. So second, in order to build a reference data set that represents the reality on the ground, we use tools like Collect Earth Online that can allow us to access satellite and aerial imagery to assess locations at multiple dates of time. And this gets gives us a sense of the temporal accuracy of our map products. And because this is an online tool, each organization can work on the validation simultaneously. Next slide. Okay, so finally, as mentioned before, in addition to the more traditional quantitative methods to assess accuracy, we use qualitative methods as well, working with potential end users to get a descriptive assessment of the quality of the map. Based on their understanding of specific locations that they're familiar with, we also want to get a better understanding of potential end uses early on in the process. So this process of engaging with potential end users to understand if a map is qualitatively accurate and fit for purpose is really baked into our process as we develop early versions of our map services. We also want to get products out in a timely manner, as Adam explained, and sometimes validation takes quite a bit of time. So we release products in stages, first as a prototype, maybe covering a small region, then as a beta version or provisional product before release of a fully validated operational product. In these early stages, we rely on existing reference data sets to gauge the success of our mapping algorithms. We can use these early products to seek feedback from end users to ensure that the products are fit for purpose. And we really see this as an iterative process. As products are developed, we seek qualitative feedback from end users that can help us improve the map algorithm, but also to design the sampling scheme for our validation effort. And finally, this process helps identify the need for potential, or the potential need for new products. Next slide. So where are we now? So we've recently completed the validation of the water observations from space. For this product, we set up a probabilistic sample design and used Collectors Online to assess the locations of each sample point over 12 months to get at that dynamic accuracy. This really gave us a better understanding of the spatial and temporal accuracy of the data product. All of this is being processed right now, and we're getting ready to launch the validation of a new map service of an annual continental scale crop mask at 20 meters. And that's it. Thanks, Aditya.
Great. Thanks very much, Megan. And again, just a reminder to all of our attendees to please submit your questions in the using the Q&A function. And you can do that as the presentations are ongoing, so that we have a list of questions by the time that the presentations end. So there's a question from Giovanni. The validation data you're going to collect are collected already will be made available for validating products coming from other projects. So I think this is sort of referring to the validation or training data and how that can then be made available to validate other products.
Yeah, let me, hopefully I'm answering this correctly, but all of the validation data that we collect will be made freely available. We're working out the details of how to do that, potentially hosting it on with an organization like Radiant Earth, or maybe in another way, but yes, all of the data that we're collecting will be made available.
Great. And there's another question from Stephen Career about the sort of magnitude of what being able to use ground truth data and being able to collect ground truth data, which we all completely agree with, and especially in the focus around agricultural data. Food security is what the current thematic area that we're also going to be working on. So Stephen, we can follow up with you in terms of how you might be able to get more involved in this validation process. Megan, let me just ask you one more question. Actually, there's another one coming up here, which I think speaks to one of the questions that I had for you. What are some of the priority products that are coming up in the pipeline beyond water observations and crop mask? That can be, I think, a question either for you, Megan, or Adam, but let me start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think I will defer to Adam on that. He probably has a better sense of the priorities and coming down the pipeline.
Okay, thanks, Megan. That's a good question. So the first two continental products are the WAFs and the crop mask, as you know, and we're currently maturing those. We're also looking, we're currently waiting for the Landsat Collection 2 to come out, which is imminent any day now. And then once that comes out, I anticipate we'll run a couple of additional products that will give continental scale information. One is probably going to be a geomedian, which is like a seasonal average of Sentinel data or Landsat data. I think we'll also look into fractional cover. Fractional cover is a measure that's got global application in terms of understanding ground cover. It's very important for understanding rangelands and productivity in those areas. And it's something which can be produced quite easily using existing methods. But the challenge with that will be we don't know how accurate it's going to be in Africa, and so there'll be another call for validation when we start to produce that. So those are the things we're anticipating, but they're not yet confirmed by our technical advisory committee. We don't quite have the data in place, but so that's sort of an early next year thing.
Great, thanks Adam, and thanks again Megan for your presentation and your leadership in putting together this data validation program. I see that there's many questions coming in now, so thanks to all of our attendees. Those are all being tracked, and we'll try to get to some more of those questions as the webinar continues, but just in interest of time, I want to now hand it over to Karis Tenneson from the Surveyor program. Karis, thank you for joining.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Great. Karis, do you want to just provide an introduction to yourself and then carry on with your presentation?
Yeah. So, morning. I'm Karis Tenneson. I work with an environmental think tank called Spatial Informatics Group, and we are part of two of the Surveyor consortiums. So we work in Surveyor Amazonia and Surveyor Mekong. And through the Surveyor Mekong, we started this project called MAPCHA, which has morphed into Collect Earth Online. And so that's what I'll present to you now. So if you want to go, before we go to the next slide, I'll just point out the link to Collect Earth Online is there. So it's just collect.earth if people want to explore what I'm about to present. So now we can go to the next slide. So as Megan already mentioned, when we start, in the interest of validating products or as decision makers, we just want to learn more about what's happening on the landscape. To some extent, we need to assess reality, right? And sometimes you need to go back in time to assess reality of what's happening on the ground. And so when we were working with the Surveyor Mekong Hub, we started developing a regional land cover monitoring system for the whole Mekong. And we were at the point where we needed to do some of this validation work to figure out, how well were our maps representing more or less reality. And there are a couple tools already existing that didn't quite meet our needs that we could use for this. And so based on kind of that needs assessment, we started developing a free and open source, fully online tool. So some of you might be familiar with the Open Forest application called Collect Earth Desktop. We took kind of the idea behind Collect Earth Desktop and we moved it all online. So what Collect Earth Online is it's an open source application that's online, and it bridges the ability to make a survey, so you can set up kind of your questions of interest about what's happening on the landscape. It brings together a database, and the database is fully stored on the cloud, and then it brings together all of the available free and open source satellite and high resolution imagery. But then we also have a kind of an interface where you can connect your own commercial imagery feeds or your own WMS imagery feeds. So it brings together all of that. And then we make it open so you can share this platform with all of your users, so you can start doing these mapathons across the globe if you want. So Collect Earth Online is nice. It promotes consistency in locating, interpreting, and labeling reference data plots. You can do simultaneous data entry. with all of your interpreters. So if you have a team of 25 people going out and collecting, labeling information on what's happening on the landscape, you have just one project, and as they go to the next plot, it just feeds them the next available plot. So everybody can start labeling plots at the same time. It's all online, so you don't need to install anything on your desktop. And then because it's all saved on the cloud, you don't have to take and gather everybody's labels and recompile them after they're done. So it's powerful in that way. It just does a lot of the database management for you. So if we go to the next slide, who's using this? I would say our biggest user is, we've got a number of countries using CEO for their reporting, such as for greenhouse gas inventories. So double checking that the maps they're creating to track their activity data are right and do the unbiased estimates of area based on those maps. The FAO Forest Resource Assessment is using this to track, forest cover across the globe. And then we have a lot of project level use. And then, you already know that Digital Earth Africa is using this. So they're just a snapshot of some of our use cases. And then I thought I'd wrap up with the next slide that just shows kind of if you want to, hopefully if you click the video, it'll play. This is a snapshot of what the data collection looks like. So in the Collect Earth Online, there's two different types of users. One is an administrator, and the administrator can set up these different projects and manage institutions and download all of the data. The second user is the person doing the interpretation at a plot level. And so this little video clip is just an example of what the interpretation process looks like. So here you can see in the middle of the map, there's a plot. And on the right-hand side, there's access to all of these different imagery feeds and different dates and different band combinations. So you can toggle through, the imagery that you've already agreed upon to use for doing the validation, come up with an idea what's happening at that specific site. And then once you've identified that land cover or, land cover condition, then you go ahead and label it on the right-hand panel and save it. And then once you save it, it's saved to the database and you go on to the next plot. The one thing I didn't show, but in Megan's slide, she had an example of this. We also have we've also linked to Google Earth Engine. So in Google Earth Engine, you can access a lot of the time series charts and information. So it's not just the map window. There's access to a lot of different ways to view the information. So we want to go to the next slide. I think we can skip the next slide, but then the following slide, I'll just mention who some of our partners are to build this. So this is an example. Yeah, there we go. So this started as an effort with the NASA Surveyor initiative. But then it expanded and we ended up partnering very closely with FAO, who managed the open forest tools, which are the free and open source tools for monitoring forest conditions and managing forests. So it is part of the open forest tool set. And then, we have a lot of partners that we're developing this out with. So maybe pause there and see if there's any questions.
Karis, thank you so much. I know that our partnership with Surveyor and the Spatial Informatics Group to be able to use the Collect Earth Online tool as part of the data validation effort has been critical. So we thank you and the support of your organization in that. Let me just hand it over to Megan really quickly also to see if there's anything else that she wanted to add or any question related to the use of Collect Earth Online in relation to this program.
Nope. Just to reiterate how critical it's been to help with the validation effort, and how exciting it is to see it's continually being updated and new features are being added. So Karis, I'm really excited about all the new changes that are coming into the tool as well. So yeah, a very useful tool.
Yeah. And I will say that we develop it kind of along the philosophy of the surveyor network. So all of our improvements are user driven. So if anybody, I mean, for those of you on the call, if you end up working with Collectorth Online and you have any suggestions, we track those, and that's how we kind of prioritize how to launch new features or make improvements.
Great. Thank you so much, Karis. I think what I'd like to suggest now is, Matt, I think we should just go into Negin's presentation next. We'll go through that presentation, and then we'll have a bit of a Q&A session before we start the panel. The next presentation is going to be from Negin Moghaddam. Unfortunately, she was not able to join the webinar in person, but she did provide a video of her presentation. So this will be about 5 minutes, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So Matt, if you can get that started, that would be great.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Negin Moghaddam, EO scientist at Geoscience Australia and part of the Africa establishment team. I'm going to talk about WOF services in Africa as part of this webinar. Here I'm going to introduce an amazing product for the whole Africa that we call water observations from space, or WOFs. It is one of many potential types of continental scale analysis using medium resolution satellite data such as Landsat imagery from over 30-year archive. This product can observe surface water features and its dynamics through time. WOFs can show where water is normally present in a landscape, where water is seldom observed, and where inundation occurred occasionally. WOF's product can also be used as a mask to remove certain water features from another dataset, such as continental fraction covered layer. Now on the right, I show some snapshots of local reservoirs or lakes or wetlands that can be seen by WOFs, and how it can be an amazing product to differentiate the changes in water level and extent. This picture shows Saloum Delta in Senegal, and you can see the wetland areas and also the water level changes through time. Lake Solonga in Tanzania is one of the best examples that we have in using WOF's observation for defining the water extent and changes in water level. In Morocco, we have another example that shows changes to water extent and its dynamics throughout time, and this area called Barang al Mansour al Dahbi. Now, if you are curious and would like to check out and learn more about this amazing dataset, please visit maps.digitalis.africa for more details. WOF's product in Africa is based on an algorithm that has been developed and well tested in Australia. Africa is a great continent and also very challenging for validating any continental level product such as WOFs due to its diverse climate, geography, and also temporal changes in the surface water condition. With a validation task team and an effort from the Africa establishment team working very closely with partners, we use Collectorth Online tool over the course of a year in Africa in order to do the validation and robust accuracy assessment of the product for each agroecological zone, as you can see on the left. Here I'm showcasing 2 agroecological zones in Africa in which we conducted the accuracy assessment of WOF's product. In the eastern AEZ, as we can see with purple color on the map, we had enough number of valid points with WOF's clear observations in 2018 for each calendar month, although the drop can be seen in March and April. Accuracy assessment shows the actual, which is labeled by analysts, versus predicted by WOFs. As the table shows, 91.37 overall accuracy for WOFs has been achieved in Eastern AZ. WOFs performs highly in classifying water with 94.43 users accuracy. Then for evaluating the classifier performance, we use F1 score that shows high values close to 1 both in water and no water. When it comes to Sahel AZ, yellow region in the map on the left, we see a fluctuation of valid points with regards to clear WAFS observation throughout the year, corresponding to change between dry and wet seasons, with July showing the lowest number and March the highest. From the accuracy assessment table, WAFS attained 84.43 overall accuracy and shows very good performance in detecting both water and no water features out of 2,736 assessed points. F1 score value for both categories is around 0.8. Comparing these two AEZs as well as others that are now being assessed shows variations of accuracy in different agroecological zones through time. For instance, in Eastern AEZ, we have higher accuracy than the Sahel that has a limited number of valid points. The coolest thing about WAF's continental product in Africa is when we compare its performance with Sentinel-2 Scene Classification Layer, or SCL. As you can see, for multi-class accuracy assessment of each validation points, for Sahel AEZ, WAFs achieved 73% overall accuracy compared to Sentinel-2 SCL with 60% overall accuracy. In addition to this, WAFs performs far more better than SCL in classifying ephemeral and permanent water features. So what's next? We will continue the accuracy assessment on the remaining regions and aim to get the operational data service published by early next year. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, great. We will have to thank Negin next time we are on a call with her. That was a great presentation. Hopefully that gave you some good background on the water observations from space dataset and what the accuracy assessment is looking like thus far. Let me pose a few questions now before we start with our panel that are being submitted by our attendees. Again, I will just remind all of our attendees to please submit questions via the Q&A function. And I think this is probably a question for Adam. Adam, Rupert Holden is asking that, the Australian embassy in Morocco, and I think this is more generally applied to how do organizations, local partners get more involved with the Digital Earth Africa program such that there are opportunities to work together?
Hi, Rupert. Great to have someone from DFAT online. So there's multiple answers to your question, of course. For the broader audience, anybody can access the capabilities and find out more through our website, which is digitalearthafrica.org. And there's a range, and there'll be increasingly rich set of materials on there, and including the map that Negin just spoke about that people can use. Beyond that, there are regional institution partners that we spoke about earlier. So groups that are close to or engaged with one of our implementing partners, which includes OSS in Tunisia and CSE in Senegal, and then Afrigist and Agromed in Niger and Nigeria, and then RCMRD in Kenya, and the ECA in Ethiopia, and SANSA in South Africa. These are our main implementing partners, and they all have reach to multiple countries. Now, Morocco might be a little bit far to the northwest for that, but in general, there's an opportunity to engage through those implementing partner organizations. So that's two pathways. And I guess, Rupert, it might be worth contacting me directly if you think neither of those is appropriate, and we're happy to be approached independently through Digital Earth Africa, through the email address, which is just digitalearthafrica@ga.gov.au, and we can respond to requests. Anybody can go on the website as well and register their interest and become part of the stakeholder community group, which I mentioned earlier, and that will keep them engaged with all the materials we produce in terms of notebooks, monthly newsletters, and so forth.
Thanks, Adam. I think actually at this point, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the panel, because I do think that some of the questions that are being asked, there's going to be very good input from them as well. So if I can just have all of our panelists turn their videos on. Great, thanks. And so, you know, as Adam mentioned, part of the operational model for Digital Earth Africa is to really harness and leverage the expertise and capacity that already exists across the continent, and do that in a way where we have a distributed model by engaging with regional institutions within Africa. And so we have Afrigist and the Saharan and Sahel Observatory, Agromet and Afrigist as several of those partners, and those organizations have been included as part of the data validation task team. Let me first have Fatou. Fatou, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Aditya. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Digital Earth Africa Establishment team. Good morning, all participants. Thank you very much for giving us that opportunity. My name is Ndeye Fatou. I'm project manager at the Sahara and Sahel Observatory, where I am in charge of different EU tasks. For this partnership with Digital Earth Africa, let me thank all colleagues that participate on the different tasks as validation, performance growth, capacity development, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatou. Fatou, there does seem to be a little bit of a mic issue from your end. There's some static coming in, so just let me know. All right.
It's better now?
Still staticky.
Okay.
All right, but hopefully that can fix.
Hopefully, yeah.
Second. Senna, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. I'm Negin Moghaddam from Afrigis. I work as lecturer in the cartography department. I'm the head of the ICT unit. And it has been a pleasure working with GE Africa on this validation work, bringing in our expertise in terms of validation.
Thank you, Senna. Bako?
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. Hello, everybody. My name is Bako Mamane. I'm working at SILS at Agreement, based in Niamey. I'm part of Survey West Africa as the co-chief of party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bako. And last but not least, David.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Ongo. I work at Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. I'm a GIS expert at the Institute. We are serving 20 member states, and a pleasure to be here and partner with DA to bring these particular products and many more. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And so I just want to go back to the previous question. You know, the part of the design behind the operational model is to be able to use the mandate of our implementing partners, because you're the ones who best understand what some of the needs and priorities are across the countries that you're working with, and there's already a number of partners that you're already engaged with already. And so going back to that previous question and thinking about Adam's answer, is there anything that you want to sort of add to that answer in terms of how local partners and organizations can get more engaged in this program? David?
Is that too? Oh, sure.
It's too, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I think local partners have a lot of gaps that need to be filled, especially when it comes to this kind of data that we're looking for. With current situations where a lot of information cannot be analyzed in a silo, then continental products become quite important, especially when it comes to looking at some of the problems holistically. So this particular one, I think, to my end, is a very good product, and I'll say it will be beneficial to our partners, especially who we are currently serving. With the 20 member states, I think we can even do more, even beyond, depending with what their needs will be. To you again.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, David. Thank you. Bako, Senna, Fatou, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, okay. I want to take the floor, Aditya. Yeah, I think this product is a very good opportunity for our end users, our partner, because getting data from satellite is very, very important. Sometimes it's so difficult for us to go to the field due to some realities that we have. And if from your office you can get the good information with a good accuracy, I think it's a very good opportunity for our partners. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Aditya? It's okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. There's a little bit of static, but we can understand what you're saying. So
Okay.
we'll just continue.
Very sorry for that.
That's okay.
Yeah, just to add that it is very important that you may know that we have a mandate for our different institutions here present to support our country members, to support our partners, and also the end users. And it is very important. If you have a mandate to support your end users, it is very critical to being involved in this partnership in Digital Africa, and to highlight all these opportunities that we get across Africa, and to get this data, this information, and to help and to support our members.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, adding to that, I think this platform is a great opportunity to academic institutions like AfriGIS, and is also contributing to research. You know, the availability of confirmed data is not something that you get at, it has a cost. So by having this available at zero cost, I think is a great opportunity for Africa development. Yeah,
I think that's a very good point. So this is a really good discussion, and I think it points to another question that's being asked about by William Rex, which is really related to the concept behind data validation on these types of data products is highly technical. How do we communicate this type of information to decision makers, like in the example of the water observations from space data set, to an actual water official in a country, so that they're able to understand how they have trust and confidence in that data and how it compares to information that they have within the country as well. What would that approach look like so that you really get decision makers engaged with these data and understand that there is some confidence that's built into it?
If I might go first, I think the decision makers are concerned with solving the societal problems, or problems that are rightfully within their mandate. So, and since we understand getting good products that can easily solve some of the problems we have around is quite hard, then providing them with a product like WOFs becomes an added advantage, not only to ourselves and as an organization, but also to them, and building trust with each other. So I believe by sharing these particular products and showing them how it can be able to solve some of their problems, then becomes the best way to bring the non-technical people, because a product has been shown to them and it can solve the problem that they have on the ground. So by providing it to them and solving the problem that they have, then the trust can easily be built in the products that we are creating. Back to you, Aditya.
Thanks. I think that's a great answer. Did anyone else want to add anything to that? I think sorry?
Fatou was trying to say something, but you're muted.
You're on mute, Fatou.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you, David, for your answer. Just to add for this very, very particular and important point that when we talk about information, just to underline that we need to promote more sustainable natural resources by improving decision-maker process through provision of relevant information. I think it is very important to say that relevant information. I would like to emphasize this point. That means it's very critical to be involved in this to this validation effort. What I mean is, more we participate in this accuracy of information, better we can benefit from it and provide it to our partner, to the end users. It is the point that I would like to emphasize. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Fatou. Let me
I
go.
want to add,
Go ahead, Bako.
yeah, thank you very much, Aditya. I think according to our mandate, we already provide services to our partners, and those services sometimes are related to land use land cover, and we have about more than 25 classes. I think to complement those services, the WOFs can be a specialized service dedicated to water, and I think we can synergize it with those services already available for our partners.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I guess, one thing that I also wanted to jump in with is that there is a capacity development program that Digital Earth Africa that we're focusing on, but we're trying to address that in a very holistic way, in the sense that it's not only for technical users, but we also want to get to a program that allows decision makers to better understand the value of Earth observation data and what that means for the types of development scenarios and sustainable development and national development priorities that countries are dealing with on a daily basis. To do that, as these products and services are being created through the Digital Earth Africa program, I'll just come back to the point again, that it's critical that we really make these partnerships successful with our implementing partners like yourselves, because that's where we really need to be able to engage with countries and users around what some of the issues are around those products and services, what are their own priorities, and how do we work towards the uptake of those products and services. Let me now just continue with the next question and come back to some of the work that was being conducted through this data validation program. As Megan had previously mentioned, being able to kind of conduct this type of data validation at a continental scale is a daunting task in itself. And the only way that Digital Earth Africa could be successful in doing that is to be able to bring in institutions that are already based within the region, have expertise and capacity in that area, and have done it before. And so from your perspective, why do you think that is important? Why is it important for Digital Earth Africa to have taken that approach to be able to bring your institutions on board to actually be the ones that are conducting the data validation themselves? Senna, let me start with you.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, it's assumed that all the institutions working with GE Africa are working in Africa, and they have the partners already set, and they have their own channels. They have been working in Africa since years. So they have direct access to end users and decision makers. So GE Africa can rely on that channel to disseminate and to reach the end users.
Yeah. Bako, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adimou. I think our institutions, as in their mandate, they have to provide services for the countries, and for that we are in touch with both technicians and decision makers during stakeholders and all the exchanges. And we have experience, we have a good knowledge of our area, the member country states. And according to all this experience, we think that we can share this experience through the partnership with Digital Africa. This is for one side. For the other side, for our own contribution or the own capacity building of an institution, what we can highlight is the capacity building. Because if from the beginning of Digital of Africa, all those institutions are our partner, we think that it will be a good opportunity for the capacity building to allow us to understand the ABC of all what was done to get this WOF service, and we will be able to maintain it and to make it sustainable. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Bako. So as Megan presented in her presentation, beyond the technical aspects of the data validation itself, there was a qualitative assessment that was done also to better understand from a user perspective the overall use of the water observations from space data set, in particular in relation to this validation effort. Each of your organizations reached out to some users and some organizations to help them understand what this validation exercise was all about, but more importantly, how they might be able to use a data set such as WAFs. And so it would be great if you might be able to share what you learned through that exercise. David, maybe I can start with you on this question.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, I'd like to say the product that we were validating was not only created for us, but actually to the end user. And I'm saying, I'm talking about the next group of people after us. So they need to understand how the product was done, how it came about, to give them the confidence that they need in order to easily utilize this particular product. So for our case, we had we have a database of thematic experts that normally we work together in order to, whenever there's a thematic project that comes by, and particularly this one was about water. So we had our thematic lead getting in touch with some of the personnel around. We sent the emails to them, they accepted, and we were able to showcase how to utilize the WAFs to their end and to their satisfaction. Most of them were happy. It's only that I could not be able to fully quantify their sort of happiness, but they were quite, they informed us that the product that we have is quite informative in their area of expertise. I can only say one particular example is about the department of, it's called the department that deals with famine and early warning. They came back to us and asked, how often is the product being updated? So I hope it will be part of the discussion in this particular regard, but all in all, the product received the commendable recommendations. Back to you.
Thanks, David. Fatou?
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. I think this is a very good point. Like Megan said, it is a continental validation effort. The WAFs product is at a continental scale. And what we do is, at OSS, we have a lot of partners at different countries, and we took advantage of our different projects to present opportunities for access the WAF products, and also all the Earth observations that Digital Earth Africa is setting up and making available throughout the African continent. What we learn is, first of all, like David said, our partners are very happy to have a platform that they can have all this data, but also we have a lot of questions according to the needs, according to the scales. I think when we talk about the use of product, we need also to discuss about the accuracy and the scales. It's different at the continental scales and different at the national level and local level. I think we can discuss more, a little bit more during this discussion. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thanks, Fatou. Senna, did you want to add anything?
Yeah. Let me just put that partners in general are very happy because during the process, from the validation aspect, we have been able to implicate them during the qualitative assessment. So we, at our own level, we are able to contact them. We rely essentially on the members' countries, and then we are able to get in touch with the stakeholder, the end user, and to integrate them. So from the beginning, they were part of the system. So the feedback were coming from them about the platform they use, and they're very happy because
Great, thanks, Senna. So Bako, I'm going to come back to you with our next question because I'm just being cognizant of the time, and I know that we need to start wrapping it up soon. I think that there's lots of potential, and obviously it sounds like there's lots of positivity around this particular data set and how it can be used. What are some of the challenges? And I'd just like to do a roundtable as sort of the last comments from the panel around that, because I think we can sort of conclude by better understanding some of the challenges that we have to work towards. And Meghan, I'd like to have you sort of jump in on this as well. So Bako, what do you see as some of the challenges as we move forward with data validation on this particular product and future products?
Yeah, I think as challenge that we can be faced, it will be related to internet connectivity itself. And I think this problem is general for all West African countries, if you can take the example of African countries, because sometimes the internet is not so easy to work with the cloud, and it's not related to this service. This is the only limitations that I can see. If not, I think for the accuracy, as Adimou said, we already have input from some of the key partners that we have, and they enjoy the product. The only way is to see how to encourage them to continue to use it. And for this, I think as the product is accurate, we have no doubt that they will continue to use it. But as I said, the only limitation is the internet, and it's not related to the product. It's general for all the West African countries. Thank you.
Thanks, Bako. Fatou?
Yeah, and I think the main challenge for this validation effort is to highlight the link between product and needs. I think we need to continue to pursue our effort for that point, for my side.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a very good point. David?
I think from our end, the only challenge we had was, of course, being a continental product and having so many hands working together. There's just small disparity in terms of level of expertise. So that could be the only, but we are very grateful with to Meghan and Negin and the team on the other side. I think they tried as much as possible to minimize those errors of either from human errors. And the second one, I think through the Collect Earth Online, there are incidences where, being a tropical country or tropical region, the region may be clouds most of the time, but at least again, thanks to Meghan and Negin and the team, that is Karis and so on, they tried as much as possible to make sure that at least each point that was being validated, an image was provided, at least to show what is under. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Senna?
What I could add is just the cloud coverage on the Sentinel image, but as I will put it, it's not that has been wiped away because we are having access to the Google map, the high resolution image also to help us identify the point. So at the end, it was quite good. The other aspect, you know, on the platform, having multiple access to the platform at the same time from the agent creates some of, how would I put it, make the platform to be a bit slow. So those are the little challenges that we have.
Thank you. That's really good feedback to have. Karis, let me go over to you. Let me just see if there's any comments that you have about some of the comments that were being made just previously. Hopefully you're still there.
Yeah. No, I'll just say it's really exciting to see, you know, everybody making use of Collect Earth Online in order to validate the products and, you know, ultimately help make better decisions and provide accessibility to all of the data.
Yeah, well, thank you again. I mean, I think as David and others have indicated, being able to use Collect Earth Online for this exercise was hugely helpful. Megan, let me go over to you. And I think for your contribution at this point, like it would be great to sort of hear from you what you think maybe a key challenge and opportunity might look like. And then I think we're also going to start concluding. So I think, yes, so I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. So we spoke a lot about the two approaches we use, the quantitative approach, which is more of the traditional statistical approach, and our qualitative approach, which is engaging with end users. And the quantitative approach that we used is very well outlined in the academic literature. You know, we're using methods that are well defined and are considered best practices. But this qualitative approach, what we spoke a lot about in this panel, which is engaging with end users to understand needs, to make sure that the product is fit for purpose, and also to, you know, create documentation to help guide users who may be less technical to use the data set. That whole qualitative process is pretty innovative and new, and there's not a lot of guidance around it. And I think what's our challenge within our team and what we're learning and working on is figuring out how to improve that process of qualitative assessment, engaging with end users, to really bring them into that validation process early on. So I think we still have a lot to learn in that space, but it's also an exciting space to be working in. And I think it's a huge need that really is lacking in a lot of different validation efforts.
Great, thanks so much, Megan. Adam, let me go over to you to see if there's any concluding comments that you have.
In terms of the content, Aditya, no, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Okay, and then so I think, do you want to just do an initial sort of conclusion? Thanks to everyone.
Yeah, if we're wrapping up, I do want to say thanks particularly to the panelists who've spoken really clearly about the role of our implementing partners, and it's fantastic to have you here driving that home and really taking on the mantle of how we take Digital Earth Africa forward, how you take Digital Earth Africa forward, with validation being the first task we've all worked together on. I also want to thank Severe for being here. That partnership with you guys, Karis, has been pretty critical in terms of having a tool that we could use for the validation work, and it exemplifies the way in which we're trying to work with other institutions, regional and international, so that we can draw on what's happening alongside us and what other people are doing. And for example, we've had some very exciting conversations recently with GeoGlam about how we can coordinate closely with them. And that sort of goes to one of the questions, which is why I mentioned it. So broadly, thank you everybody for being here. It's a terrific evening for us, or morning for some. And I think I've said enough. Thanks, Aditya.
Thanks, Adam. Matt, can you just go to the next slide? And so, yeah, so I want to offer my thanks as well. I want to thank Megan. Megan, thank you for your leadership in getting this program launched and organized. The Digital Earth Africa program is really kind of founded on the partnerships that in Africa that need to be created in order for this program to be successful. So to all of our panelists, Sena, Bako, Fatou, David, thank you for you and your organizations and other colleagues within your organizations who've supported the data validation work and will be implementing partners in our broader work program moving forward. Karis, thank you so much for all the support from Severe and Spatial Informatics Group for supporting this data validation work. We look forward to working further with you. To all of our attendees from around the world, really thank you for participating, for engaging, and for all of your questions. I know that we didn't get to all of the questions, but for those that we were not able to get to, we will answer them and make those available. Please go to digitalearthafrica.org to find out more information about the program. It also gives you all the information around how to access the map viewer, the sandbox, where the water observations from space data set is, the strategy on the data validation program. We will also make this presentation available If there are any additional questions that you have, please submit those via meeting@digitalearthafrica.org. This is the first webinar that we've done now as part of a series that we are developing. Our next webinar is likely to be in January, which will be likely focused on our training and broader capacity development programs. So we will be providing more information about that probably in the coming weeks. So we hope that you will dial in for that conversation as well. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up. Congratulate everyone for participating on this call, and thank you very much. Look forward to our next engagement.